As you've probably heard me talk about often, business isn't just about spreadsheets, numbers, documents, logic. Our business at the end of the day is about people. And in fact, I will say all business is about people. And yet, whether it's financial advisors or entrepreneurs or salespeople, we're often trained to lead with logic. And a lot of times we're on the other side, our clients, people we're negotiating, they're wrestling with their own emotions, and they're thinking about what's coming next. And I think about this a lot, about the people aspect of our business. And so today's episode, I thought we'd dive into really that human side of business, and specifically a topic that we address quite a bit on the show, which is succession planning, is sort of what's the next part of people's lives. And the thing about that is, although there is logic to it, it's not like a balance sheet, right? It's not just logic. There's a lot of emotion that comes into this major decision that's going to take place in people's lives. And what you have to ask yourself is, how do you manage your own emotions? How do you manage your clients' emotions? How do you manage the other side's emotions? It's a difficult topic, and especially putting it together in something that is so personal to us. So how do we look at that? So, as usual, we try to bring the experts on who actually can help us understand this and work our way through this. So today we have Liz Doyle Harmer. She's going to share all of her insights on these very important topics. So what does Liz do? She's a transformational leadership coach and facilitator. Liz supports senior leaders in teams. She works with them to try to develop self-awareness, try to look at emotional agility and resilience in a complex environment, which is, everyone have to say that's what we're in right now. Her approach integrates somatic leadership practices, helping leaders recognize and shift their internal state in real time. And so they can lead with better clarity. They can have better trust, empathy, and purpose in what they do. She engages both the mind and body and understands not only leadership, but how to embody leadership. So I think this is going to be great. She's got 20 years experience. She started when she was 10. She started doing public relations, strategy, event planning. She does internet marketing and entrepreneurship. She got a very wide range of talents. She does a lot of coaching, as we talked about. She's worked with companies like Marsh McLennan, JP Morgan, Novo Nordisk, Google, RSA, Bank of America, Goodman's, Hub, and a whole bunch of more. In all sorts of different industries. So Liz, I'm very excited. Welcome to the show.
Oh, Chris, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Lots to explore today.
So let's get started with how I always get started. People want to know, how did you get here? How did Liz get where we are today?
I love that question. I will give you the Coles Note version of that. So today I'm a leadership coach. I'm a facilitator. And I think one of the things I've always been drawn to, even as a small child, is this question of why are we here? What do we want to do?
So the small questions.
The small question. Yeah. And I was one of those annoying kids. I would ask my mother, I'd be like, Mom, what's the point? Why are we here? What's the purpose? And I was raised very religiously, so it was always the purpose is to get into heaven. That's why we're here. And that answer didn't quite sit well with me. I'm we've had 80, 90 years here. What are we meant to do here? And so, I turned to self-help books when my mom was a lovely person. When she didn't have the answers I was seeking, I turned to a lot of self-help books. I started to read, I read Tony Robbins. So this is going back, before Audible, I listened to books on tape. So these were cassette tapes in my Toyota Camry. I would drive around, put it in, and listen to his Awaken the Giant and his booming voice, and he would say, you can do anything. You can unleash potential. You can achieve, make your life great. And I'd be like, yes, I've got this for 2 days. Feeling Tony's energy, I would move forward. It's yes, I'm on track. I can do it. And then stuff would happen, right? Things would get in the way. And that always puzzled me and frustrated me equally. Why isn't Tony's voice enough to motivate me to change my life? What is getting in the way? And so I've always had this question of what is it we want to achieve with our time here on this planet? And how can I support myself and others in overcoming the obstacles that get in our way? And that speaks to beliefs. It speaks to emotional reactivity, which we're going to explore today. Like, there's a lot. Sometimes it's systems, it's systems in our world that can get in our way. But as a coach, I focus more on the internal side, right? The stuff that's within our control. So that's what got me into coaching. I also used to co-own a yoga studio. I think that's another path, another approach to exploring, how to live a meaningful life. And I'm a parent of multiple children, 4 kids.
Four kids. Oh my God, you're a busy girl.
So that's another area where I can explore this idea of potential and unlocking potential.
Oh, wow. So, there's a lot of different facets here. And I guess it is, that's and we've talked about it on the show before, man's search for meaning. It's why are we here? What are the big questions? And to your point, what gets in our way? And, I've been doing this for quite a while. And in my experience, mostly what gets in our way is ourselves and our own thought processes. And what we're thinking about is usually our biggest enemy. It's not the outside world. It's usually our perception of the outside world. But let's look at that because, emotions are critical. But by the way, they're often overlooked in business, and especially a topic like, as we were discussing before, succession planning. Where there's a lot of people going through this phase of their lives where they've established a business. The business is really part of them. It's been part of their lives for so long. And now they know they owe it to their clients, they owe it to their staff, they owe it to the people who've worked with them, that they have to at some point step aside and other people have to come in. So maybe talk a little bit about how emotions play in this particular game that we're talking about.
Yeah, they play a big role. And I appreciate your question. And there's 2 parts of it that capture my attention. One is emotions are often overlooked and emotions are also critical. Right. And I think they're overlooked because in our culture, we don't want to deal with the human side of being human.
Right.
We don't want to deal with the messiness.
Very true. Yeah.
We don't want to deal with the messiness of emotions. And that can start really young. And I know even as a parent, I've been guilty of doing that too, where, my son can say, oh, I feel sad. And right away, don't feel sad. Don't feel sad. Don't be sad. Let's rescue you from that big, scary emotion. And so I think that speaks to why we might overlook emotions for ourselves, for our clients, is because we've been cultured or taught not to pay attention to them, to try to minimize them, to not be with them. And, my experience is that what we resist persists. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish we could ignore it and it would go away. But in general, what we resist persists, and generally in unhelpful ways.
Right.
And so that speaks to why it's critical to really develop a practice of getting more skillful in managing our thoughts and our emotions.
Interesting. So, as we say, these are the roadblocks sometimes that can get in the way of our own success and, the success of people around us. So maybe give some examples of some of these roadblocks that get thrown up and what are some of the techniques that you can utilize to deal with these things? Yeah.
So let's take the situation of someone who's trying to sell their business. Right. Let's explore that. And I'm going to imagine for a moment that they might be having 2 conflicting emotions. And as humans, it is very challenging to be with one emotion, let alone 2.
Right.
Especially when they're giving us different indications, right? So when you're selling your business, you might have some excitement about the future, some relief, some gratitude, and those are kind of emotions that lead you towards the direction of selling your business. And then you might have some that are like sadness, or fear over losing your identity, or even regret about things you didn't do in your business, you didn't get a chance to do. And so these move you away from the direction of selling your business. And this can be really complex on the inside to deal with. And when we're not aware of that pattern, we can knee-jerk react to one or the other, right? Depending on our mood, depending on which one's there. Knee jerk, I'm selling my business, let's go. Knee jerk, I'm sad, I'm not going to sell it.
Right. You've just described about half of the people that we deal with and talk to about this particular topic.
Yeah, and it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable.
So what are some of the techniques that, if you recognize this in yourself, you see this dysfunctionality of emotions going one way and the other, what would you recommend that person do?
Yeah. So I think recognizing is a big step in itself. And what I would say is that most people likely won't recognize that there's some uncomfortable emotions that are happening.
Right.
They might see it as, often what I hear from people is this blanket statement of, I feel overwhelmed. Right? I feel overwhelmed. And when that's happening, when we're like, oh my God, I'm excited, I'm grateful for what's ahead, I'm scared of losing my identity, that's kind of underneath this feeling of overwhelm. And so, one thing I would point to is when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's likely, sometimes it's because something on the outside world is too big, but often it's because something on the inside world is too big. There's something happening on the inside world that feels too big.
Right.
And so one thing would be to pause and get curious, like what is underneath?
Start asking questions.
Yeah, start asking questions, right? And so overwhelm is one level, but see if you can dip below that and start to recognize the other emotions that might be there for you. Right? So one tool that can be helpful here, and you can Google it, you can find it online, there's lots of emotional wheels. You can take a moment, you can Google that. There's something like 80 some emotions on there.
Wow.
And yeah, well, that's
Human
the thing.
beings are crazy, aren't they?
Well, and that's the thing. Most people is like sad, mad, glad. These are my hungry. Yeah, tired. These are my emotions. And there's actually a lot more. And by diving into the depth of what might be there for you, you get more information about the right choice to make as well. So an emotional tool. But the other thing I'll say just about the step of recognizing is that the pace of our culture makes that hard. We're going so fast that we don't take these moments to pause and check in. So I think pausing and checking in with yourself is another tool. Like just slowing down to go fast. It's an oxymoron, but it works. Slow down, pause, take a breath, check in, use the emotional tool wheel, see if you can diagnose a little more deeply than sad, mad, glad.
Right. Yeah, no, that's good. Because what I've found is, entrepreneurs in general, certainly in the wealth business that I'm in, you put your whole life into the business. I've built a business, and it actually becomes part of you. It becomes part of your identity. It's your ego. It's how you tie your whole self-importance to that. And then, to your point, the fear or the emotions that come about by thinking about you're going to have to give that up and that there's nothing on the other side. I think that's what, sort of wreaks havoc in a lot of people's minds. And then they put it off until it's too late. They fail to enjoy all the things that they have built and the freedom that provides because of that identity. And you must see this in some of your consulting as well.
Yeah, 100%, right? That the fear of losing that sense of identity, you spoke to it so well, because it's almost like you're, what the image that came to me as you're speaking about this is you're on one side of a cliff, right? And there's another cliff on the other side, right? And you're leaving the cliff, and you're not sure where you're going yet, right? So you're going into uncertainty. And for most people, that is very unsettling. Our mind wants to be able to predict the future, right? And so I think one of the key strategies there is just to recognize that's happening for you, right? Just
know that you're going to feel that way.
Yeah, know that you're going to feel that way. Your mind wants to be able to predict the future. Your mind is going to freak out. It's not even your mind, it's your nervous system wants to predict the future. Your nervous system is going to freak out when it can't predict the future, and just know that there's nothing wrong with you, that this is normal. This is part of the process of change. Yeah, so recognize that your nervous system will freak out when you're in the process change, and also that there's this fear of losing your identity, that's also very normal.
Right, that you will fade away.
Yeah.
And I know I've gone through the same thing. There's also something I call the superhero complex. You don't believe that anybody could look after your clients and your business as well as you can. And this, I see it all the time is, I don't want to give up those clients because they won't be as served as well, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that because no one can do it like I can. And I actually went through this, and I used my, illustrative as a story in my personal. I built up a great little business, a practice of clients. And then as I had to move on to the other side and, as the business built, I had to decide which area I was going to go to. So I gave up the practice and moved into building the company. And I remember when I went to sell the business, I went to the guy who was selling it to, and I'm like, you know what? I'm the best advisor that's ever walked this planet. Everybody's going to leave. Nobody wants to stay. If you retain like 70%, I'd be surprised. Found out next year, actually, the production went up 15%. So it was me holding it back the entire time. So as much as I thought I was critically important to that business and all of my clients, I thought about them way more than they thought about they thought about me.
You're the superhero effect. I love it. I learned recently about the IKEA effect. Have you heard of that?
No, I like it already, whatever it is.
So the IKEA effect proves that we tend to overvalue work we have done ourselves. So speaking to the superhero effect, and so when you build a piece of IKEA furniture, in your mind, is it not the best cabinet you've ever seen?
That's I love that. I'm going to use that the IKEA effect. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah, so it just proves what you said about the superhero effect, right? We tend to overvalue the work we do. And so because of that, it's harder to offload to others because it's a cognitive bias towards overvaluing the work that we do.
Right. And yet, I can tell you stats on our side, when we do succession planning, we have well over 97% retention. So in other words, there is usually very little customer attrition when it goes from one to another. And yet everybody believes that the major reason that client is working is all because of you and the great work that you have done. And yet stats, unfortunately, are not proving that out quite the same.
So, and I love where you're pointing because we're talking about emotional agility, but I think another strategy is just noticing and naming my ego, right? This is my ego that's telling me that I need to be involved. And I'm curious, how was it for you when you found out the business could still go on and survive?
I was very sad. I was like, there must be a fluke. There must be something going on. It couldn't possibly be as logical as people didn't care about me. But now that doesn't mean they didn't miss me a little bit. I still get letters and emails, but as long as somebody was looking after them with the same vigor and diligence that I was, which is an important part of succession planning, and I'm hoping people would do that, it wasn't really that big of a problem. But I guess it goes back to, we deal in emotion, not fear. Emotion, not logic. And fear plays a big part of that. So we've talked about a few, but what's everybody afraid of? What are they really afraid of?
I mean, I think they're afraid of, tying into what you're just saying, not being of value. Not being of value. Right? And when we are feeling that fear and our ego gets activated, our fear tends to be very black or white. Right? Like it's it's either me or if I'm not doing it, then it's not going to work out. Right? I think there's that fear of not being valuable anymore. And I think both things can be true, right? The team that takes on can do good work, and it's still true that you did great work.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you did
Yeah,
not
it's
do
not a
good
zero-sum
work.
game.
It's
Yeah.
not a zero-sum game, right? But our ego makes it black and white. Our ego's like, no, it's either I did great work or, they did great work. We can't both be doing great work. And so I think that's helpful just to notice that we'll go into black and white thinking, and to recognize that fear of not being valuable, and to know that both things can be true. The work I did mattered, and other people can do this work too.
No, I think that's a good point. And also, the people that I see that transition out of the business the best are usually people who have something to look forward to on the other side. Whether it's, they want world travel, or they want to, boat more, or they want to spend more time with their grandchildren, they want to focus on their fitness and their health. Whenever I talk to somebody who has, I'm going to say, transitioned well. They've sold their business, they've maximized, clients are happy, the new team's happy, they're moving on. It's always the ones that have, I guess, something to look forward to. So maybe, comment on that. Is always have, I think what you started this way, the why.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, right? You're closing a chapter in your life. You're closing the chapter of your business. It does not mean you need to close the book on having purpose. You can still have purpose in your life. And what I would actually encourage, because there's a lot of research that ties with this, I would encourage you to find a new sense of purpose, because people who are purposeful live longer. They are healthier. There's research that ties into that in older age. And so I actually think, my personal view, there are a ton of problems on this planet. We need all hands on deck. And I share this selfishly because I have 4 kids, and I long for a good world for them. And so whatever it is that feels purposeful for you, whether it's, spending time with the grandkids, whether it's just being at your healthiest best, whatever it is, spend your time. And I will say 2 things. One, there might be a process to clarify what that is for yourself. Right. When you let go of one purpose, the next one might not immediately appear. And so allow yourself that time of inquiry to be, what would be purposeful for me next? What would bring my life meaning? And again, it's that uncertainty of not knowing. And then the second thing is make time for it, right? Do it.
Right. Actually do it. Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes these are things written down on a piece of paper that never get actually, acted upon. Yeah. The other one that comes to mind, as you were saying, is charitable work and helping other entrepreneurs and that sort of thing. Is how do you give back to so a great place that has provided us with a great living over a long period of time. So that's probably another thing for people to think about.
100%. I mean, someone who's really inspiring me right now is Jane Fonda. She's 86. How many times
still
has she
going?
When she was 60, she said, "What do I want to do with my last trimester?" She said, "What am I going to do that's going to bring me?" And look at how she's actually at her best now, at the age she is now. So lots of life left to live.
No, it's an interesting topic. So changing it, not just succession planning. So I say a lot of our listeners are the primary focus is in the wealth management business, which is a very both data-driven and yet emotion-driven industry. And although the emphasis always goes on the data part, really most of our business is about emotion and dealing with client emotions and also our reaction to different world events. I was wondering if there's any advice that you could give when dealing with clients who are emotional, and how to recognize that and deal with that when people make illogical decisions based on, especially in a world full of hype and I'm going to say 98% hyper news that may or may not be true. I'll put it that way. It won't be as black and white as I usually am.
Yeah. I mean, it feels so reactive right now. Right? The news is meant to make us react, right?
Yeah, clickbait, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a term.
And so, So, there's a couple things I would say. One, in Dan Goleman's book, he wrote the book Emotional Intelligence. What he found, he studied people in a professional services firm. And what he found is that the people who were skilled in emotional and social intelligence actually contributed more to profitability than the people who knew their technical stuff.
Right.
Right. And I would say this was in a professional services firm, somewhat related. My guess is that it would be the same for your listeners as well, right? The ones who are more skilled in this emotional and social intelligence will outperform the ones who have the technical competency, especially in our world of AI, where AI can do that really well.
Right. Actually, that's an excellent point of where, even young people, where they should focus on the development of relationships and, to your point, understanding what people want versus the tasks of gathering data or processing or those types of things, which, to your point, are probably going to be replaced soon enough.
Yeah. So my first tip I would make is to, one, take it on yourself to increase your skill in emotional and social intelligence. Like, take that on as a practice area for yourself. I think a lot of people are like, I'm going to increase my technical competency. I get it. That's great. Do that. And also just take it on as a learning area for you to increase your skill in emotional and social intelligence. And I say that because it really is more of a practice than a one and done. Right. So I do tend to think of it like mental and emotional fitness. And so just like you go into the gym, you would never go to the gym once and say, that's it. I'm physically fit for life.
It's all
I'm
over.
done.
Yeah.
It's over. I've got biceps for life.
There for 10 days.
Yeah. So it's the same with mental and emotional fitness. It's a practice for life, right? To help you get more skilled, mentally, emotionally fitter. When it comes to supporting clientele, so emotional fitness, we can think of as, building your own capacity first. So don't think about going to put the oxygen mask on others before you can do it for yourself. So, really practice with your own mental and emotional fitness first. And then when you're looking at the social intelligence, really, so that's the social piece. Like, what is happening with this client in front of me, right? What might be going on for them that is behind this behavior? And so just even asking those questions, starting to get curious for yourself, what might be going on for them? You can even pull the wheel out. Like, what might be the emotion they're experiencing?
Right.
And then, you can reflect it back. So don't diagnose. Don't be like, this is what I think is going on with you. That typically does not go over very well. Yeah. But just even like sharing an observation. I notice you're not coming to our meetings, or you're canceling last minute. I wonder if you're feeling, scared about approaching this. Would it be helpful to, suggest something? And so that's one framework you could use, like point to a fact. Like, I noticed that your hands are clenched in our meeting.
You're grinding your teeth.
You're grinding your teeth. I wonder if you're feeling worried about some of what you're hearing, and would it be helpful to explore this more, something like that.
No, it's good advice, and you bring up a good point. Like, I think of the most successful people that I know, like in all walks of or all professions. Let me put it, different professions, and it's always the same. It's the people who are great with people. They probably aren't the best technical people, but they are really, really good with people. And I do illustrate this, and I've illustrated before, probably on both podcasts, and I think I even did an article in LinkedIn. I talked about my mom's experience with her advisor. She's always talking about, I love my advisor, I love my advisor, I love my advisor. I'm like, why do you love your advisor so much? And she's like, well, every so often he just calls me to ask me how I'm doing and see if I'm okay. Never talks about business, never talks about anything. And I'm like, that's great. I'm like, do you know what your rate of return was last year? Nope. I'm like, do you know how much you pay your advisor to manage your assets? Nope. Can you name 3 investments in your portfolio that you have right now? Nope. And it illustrates that, clients really want to know that you care about them, but our industry obsesses about rates of return and obsesses about what anything costs and obsess about what types of investments are in. And yet the average person actually doesn't care about any of those things. They want to care that you care about them and that they have your best interest in mind. And I think that sort of illustrates the successful people in their industry care about their clients more than they care about which investments they give them.
I think that says so much, right? People want advisors who they can trust and who care about them, right? Can I trust you, and do you care about me? And trust and care, ironically, are emotions.
Right.
They are not thoughts, right? This is
Right.
emotional skillfulness is about, yes, dealing with the challenging emotions, but also being able to embody, engender these more powerful emotions like trust and empathy, which really
Right.
support the relationship and your business.
So as an extension of that, is there a conversation that you would recommend that advisors have with their clients that can, elicit sort of what they're thinking and what's important to them and utilize some of that emotional intelligence?
So whenever, as a coach, one of the things I do is design the relationship in the beginning,
Right.
right? And so I'm wondering whether that might be helpful in the beginning to design that in, and do it in a way that normalizes it. Even just to say something in the beginning. I've noticed with a lot of my clients that dealing with our investments and our finances, emotions come up. Right. This is an emotional decision. Sometimes our emotions come in and they can play a part in our decisions and affect our decisions. And so one of the things I found helpful is to make room to discuss, our emotions together.
Right.
Would you be open to doing that with me? Would be one way
I like it.
you
Yeah.
could approach that.
Yeah. No, I like that. And to your point, it sort of sets the foundation of that relationship going forward and the expectations, because that's, sometimes where it goes off the rails is two people have different expectations of what is going to happen in the future. And that, that can only widen over time. It doesn't get any closer usually. One of the things I was going to say, is there any real stories, success stories in your time in coaching that you could probably utilize on how some of this stuff is important, so listeners sort of get an idea of how beneficial these things can be?
There's a couple that come to mind for me. So one is, I just told you I sold my house, right?
Yeah.
And my real estate agent did a really good job of making himself trustworthy and empathetic. And there was a point where I was having sadness about selling my house and moving to the next one. And
Right.
he was the first person I thought of in terms of who I was going to call to be like, this is, first of all, I didn't want to bother my husband because I didn't want to put the burden of me having mixed emotions about our sale on him. I didn't think
Right.
that was fair to do. And he was the first person I was going to call. So that speaks to the trust he built and how that can support his business growth behind that, in terms of me going back to him, in terms of me recommending him to other
Right.
people. The second story I'll share is just around this idea of being overwhelmed, right? And there's many times where I work with people who are just like, I'm overwhelmed. And when we can sit and pause and breathe and get to the emotions underneath, right? Because when we're overwhelmed and we think I'm overwhelmed, the response we might take is take a break, right? Take a break. But when we sat with this person and got to what's actually underneath, what it turned out is she was actually angry about something that had happened in a meeting before. And she was overwhelmed because she was angry, and then she was feeling bad about the anger, and all this stuff was happening for her. And so when we sat with it and we recognized you're actually angry, the response that came to her is, I need to have a conversation with this person
Right.
and address what happened. And so those are two different responses, right? Overwhelmed, I'm going to take a break. I'm not actually dealing with the problem. Angry, oh, there's a challenge here. I need to solve this problem. That's actually much more helpful when it comes to leading us towards our vision, our values, our goals.
Right. Right. And it can hold you back because you hold on to that particular negative emotion in this particular case for a long period of time, I imagine.
Yeah. If we're not paying attention, we're just like, I'm overwhelmed. We don't know what's happening. We don't address it. We're just dealing with this feeling of overwhelm for so long. That actually affects our focus.
Right.
Right.
Well, folks are focused, probably our relationships, our
Yeah.
relationships with others. Yeah. So to your point, that's where one time, one of the best pieces of advice I got from one of my mentors was strategy is perfect, but people are messy.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
You can have the perfect strategy, but the problem is people. People are messy. People have their own views. They have their own ways to look at things. They're internalizing some traumatic event happened to them that they're
Yeah.
bringing back into that conversation. So it is. I always think about that when I'm like rolling my eyes at some of these things. I'm like, you got to remember, strategy's perfect, but people are messy.
100%. We are messy. We are, right? We're
I
messy.
love it. It wouldn't be fun if we weren't, though.
Exactly. I think that's the attitude, right? Like, how do I want to be in the messiness? Let's have fun with it.
I love it. Well, you're doing so much. So what's next for you? Where are you going from here?
Oh, that's a good question. So I continue to grow my business as a coach, as a facilitator. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm deeply passionate about this work. I love it. This is my meaning and fulfillment. I want to keep unlocking human potential. Again, going back to the more unlocked potential we have in this world, the greater ability we have to solve the problems in our world. And that's something I deeply care about. So that's what's next for me, more business growth.
I love it. It's great. So now if you've listened to the show, you know that I always do a rapid fire. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and it's the first thing that comes to your mind and how you would answer it. And the first question that I always ask is, what is the best advice you have ever received?
Okay, so I knew this question was coming. I struggle with best advice, but I'll share the best advice I've received recently that I'm currently implementing.
Oh, good.
Is a strategy around accessing flow states. Accessing flow states, so improving focus. And I can go into the details if that's helpful.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it would be, because I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. So it's likely something people have heard before, and it's a little bit of a deepening of it. And so the idea is the night before, really get clear on, the best goal directed action you want to take the next day. What is the most strategic thing you want to do the next day? And then what I'm doing now, this is the part that's different for me. I wake up, as soon as I wake up, I go straight to my computer and I do that action. So no exercising, no coffee, no meditation in the morning, straight to computer, do the hardest thing. And for me, this is changing everything. As a nervous, anxious person, that is not there when I first wake up. I'm rested, my body's at ease. My mind hasn't had a chance to worry about things.
Come up with bad ideas.
Yeah. So just get up. It's literally like, as soon as you wake up, you go to the computer, you get that thing done. And I'm loving that right now.
That's a good piece of advice. I'm going to try it. Well,
Yeah,
I don't know.
give
I'm
it
not
a
a
go.
morning person. It takes me a few cups of coffee before my brain even clicks
Yeah.
in, but we will see. So my next question is, what is the best book you have ever read?
So my favorite book is Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
I should write this down. I'll get a copy of this.
It's sort of along the lines of Eckhart Tolle. But what I like about Michael Singer is that he was also financially and from a business point of view very successful in his life. So he owned his own business, which he sold, he brought it public, and he has an approach to managing the ego, I would say, is one way to really
based on the
frame it.
topic we've had today, that's it.
A really good approach to manage the ego. And I love the book because it shows that your human development and your professional business development are one.
I love it. And finally, how do you want to be remembered?
Well, I hinted at it earlier. I'm so inspired by Jane Fonda. She's my role model. That's where I'm going. I want to be like her. I'm going to be in my 80s, super fit, doing work that's meaningful, still engaged, active. That's what I want to be remembered for. The Jane Fonda of Canada.
I love it. I think you'll do it. I'm rooting for you anyhow.
Thank you.
So this has been great. Thank you, Liz. This has been this is a great discussion. And again, we talked about a lot. So I'll summarize all the things that I've learned out of this. Is that when it comes to things like succession planning, like the real important things, we have to really recognize what our emotions are about that. And there's going to be fear. There's going to be, like, as I talked about, the superhero complex. There's going to be the fear of letting go, the fear of what's next. And I think your advice is just, deal with them, each one. Try to recognize that it's happening, what you should do about it. It's not logical. It's usually emotional. And when you, as you talked about, the most successful people are usually the ones who have the highest emotional IQ. They're the ones who really bond with people, and you could be as technically skilled as anybody, but you're never going to be successful as the person who does and builds great relationships and makes people feel good about what they do. I think it's and we've illustrated a lot of techniques, and really, to you said, when you're dealing with clients, try to set that emotional expectations of what each expects out of the relationship, and try to understand where people are coming from. Because, going back to my original statement, strategy might be perfect, but people are messy. So you have to deal with that side of the equation if you're going to be successful in the future. I don't know, Liz, anything to add to that?
You nailed that recap. The only thing I would add is if you find working with emotions challenging, you are not alone in that. I have also found it challenging, and you can do hard things. You can grow this skill and become more competent in your mental and emotional fitness, and it will benefit you, your well-being, your relationships, and I also believe your business.
That's great. Liz Doyle Harmer, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thanks for having me.